live on Facebook.
We are live
We
once
are
again.
live, yes.
Welcome, everybody. We are here live, wanting to talk about bees a little bit and what kind of a season we've had. And we're hoping to get some feedback from some of our viewers as well. But it's been quite a season for us this year, and
Certainly has been.
I think for most of the Northeast, it's been pretty busy. I mean, up and down roller coasters.
Yep, yep. As usual with beekeeping, the weather really influences how things are going. In particular, whether we have fine weather for bees to fly in the spring and whether we have enough rain for the flowers to produce nectar.
Right.
Because believe it or not, the flowers could be in full bloom and produce absolutely nothing that the bees can take because there's not enough water in the ground.
And that was kind of our experience this summer. I mean, spring started off okay, and then
Spring was great, and often is in this part of Maine. It seems that we get a great spring and have what we call a honey flow. For those of you who are not beekeepers, a honey flow is when the flowers are producing an abundance of nectar, and the bees are bringing in way more nectar and making honey at a rate far faster than they're using it. When there's no nectar about, we call it a dearth, so things that the hive is losing weight then.
Right.
But during a honey flow, the bees can really gain some weight and pack on many, many pounds of honey.
I mean, just this spring alone, again, my hives are in the city. I pulled 100 pounds of spring honey off just one hive, and I was pretty happy with that. And
100 of those, not bad.
That's
not
right.
bad.
That's right. And it was great. Things were going great, and then all of a sudden, they weren't great.
Yep. Then it went quiet.
Yeah.
And not one-upping or anything like that, but I had some hives that did 200 pounds of honey this year. But I've got a lot more hives to choose from.
You
so,
do,
yeah,
you do. And you have different areas. So I have some hives that are in the city, and then I have some that are out in a more rural setting as well. And they did okay in the spring, but they were relatively new hives out there. So they were really busy building up their hives and increasing their numbers.
Yeah.
And I found that there was a pretty fast buildup on my new hives this year. They did really well, and they were putting most of their energy into building comb and making bees as opposed to storing honey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My problem this year is I sold so many bees in the spring that all of my hives during that great honey flow, or most of my hives during that great honey flow, were only small hives because I'd split them to make nucleus colonies to sell to other people to start up new hives. So I missed the boat on a lot of the opportunity this year to make a lot of honey. Right. So I'd say this year I produced only about, it looks like about 65% of what I did last year. But it was overall a very good year.
Right. And even with that dearth, I mean, with you selling, you have the business where you sell your bees. You had no way of knowing that we were going to hit that major dearth that lasted so long. Man, we had a pretty good drought up this way.
Yeah, so. No way of knowing for sure, but based on the last few years, the dearth is getting more and more intense, it seems.
Yeah, it does
and
seem to be.
The opportunity for a fall flow of honey seems to be getting less and less and less. We have normally here in Maine we have a spring honey flow, and then we have a fall honey flow. And this year I had very little honey flow in the fall in 5 of my 8 yards, and then in 3 of them I did have a bit of a honey flow. So that was actually a good improvement on most years.
Right. And I found that having 2 different yards, my 2 yards, one in the city and one out in a more rural setting, my city yards did so much better during this fall dearth or drought because I have people watering their gardens. They don't like to have their plants go dry. So it helped me a little bit in the fall. I was able to have a decent harvest off, but it came relatively late because we had this massive drought. And then, boy, did it rain. I mean, it rained like a couple inches each time it rained, and, which made for some problems as far as roads and driveways flooding out. But towards the end of the nectar flows, I got a fairly decent one, and it was quick.
Yeah.
I'd go to take off an empty. I thought, well, it's going to be empty. I might as well take it off, and they're working on filling it. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll leave it on a bit.
Leave it on a bit. Yeah, I mean, Amy having a lot of her hives in the city and I have a lot of my hives in the country, and it's really is interesting to see the differences between the different hives.
Yeah.
I mean, some of your hives are in countryside, some of them are in the city, and just seeing it on going to one hive one day and in the afternoon go and check the other hive, and it could be a totally different scenario. And I find the same thing in my different yards, where some hives might be doing terrifically well this week, and the other yards doing next to nothing, and then it changes around the following week.
Yeah.
So it can be really interesting.
Yeah, and it's always fun when they surprise us. When I mean, they can
Which
fill,
are almost guaranteed to do. They
guaranteed to do
always
either
are
surprise us
surprising me.
in a
Yes.
good way or a bad way.
Yes.
Preferably the good way. And I mean, they can fill a honey super in no time. I mean,
Absolutely.
when you're thinking maybe there's not much going on, and you check it, and it's like, oh, there's a little activity, and the next time you go in, it's full.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Honey soup is a shallow box full of usually 10 combs, and they can. I've seen them fill 2 in a week.
Yep.
Especially if the comb has already been made.
Right.
But it is amazing just how fast they can fill up and be in danger of running out of room.
Right. And these supers are like he said, it's a box that goes on top of where the bees are actually living, and it's mostly the surplus honey. They
It's
put
like
some
adding
down.
anotut floor to your
Right.
apartment block.
Right. To put that's where you store all your extra stuff, right? In the
Yeah.
attic. They
Get
do
a
the
bigger
same
and
with
bigger,
honey.
bigger and bigger attics.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. So and then of course summer came along, and we had the drought, and such a heat wave, and that affected so many things beyond just the drought. With the heat, one of the things that we as beekeepers do, we have to keep up with our mite checks. Mites are a scourge to the honeybee.
Sort of like a tick, and like a tick can give us Lyme disease.
Yes.
These little mite buggers can give our bees various viruses.
This is a mite. They're terrifying looking.
That's a big mite.
That's a big mite. So, yeah, they're not quite this big. They're tiny.
You can actually fit about 5 mites on the top of this pen.
Right.
So they're that sort of size. They're not very big as far as we're concerned.
Right,
But
but
as parasites go,
right,
they're pretty big relative to the host.
it would be like us, and to quote our lovely state apiarist Jennifer Lund, just imagine a rabbit hanging off you. So that's the
6-pound
size.
rabbit.
Yep, having a rabbit hanging off you. So a mite to a bee is a big parasite, and they cause nothing but problems. So, and as being a beekeepers, we have to really try and keep those mites in check, and we do that by doing certain procedures, which allows us to get an estimate of how many mites are in there, and then that tells us whether or not it's time to treat.
Yeah.
And a lot of the treatments, and some of the treatments that Peter and I use, are temperature sensitive. And
So this summer made it really tricky.
It
So
did.
unless you were ahead of the game and got your treatments in early July,
which I did not.
which I did, but then as soon as we got to mid-July, it was 80, 90, 85, 90 degrees most days. So it meant it was impossible to treat with a sort of
Right.
preferred mite treatment. We had to use something second best.
Yep.
In fact, I had to use the second best one because it was still getting too hot there. So I called it and just started to treat with one that's less temperature sensitive. You opted to delay until
I did.
to sample low mite counts meant you could delay, but I've got too many hives, and I want to make sure I was treating to a certain schedule as well.
Right. So, and with me, my mite counts were starting to increase, which is like, all right, I'm going to get ready to treat. That's when that heat wave hit. But while they were in it, I can just imagine in my mind, oh my God, the mites are building. So the second I had a few days in a row where the temperatures were a little bit better, bam, those treatments went right in. But a lot of people were in the same boat that I was. And that secondary treatment, a lot of it was sold out. Almost,
Yeah,
it was hard to get because
that was another thing.
people got caught
Yep.
the same way I did.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I know. I've got a beekeeping supply store, and I sold out of that product within a couple of weeks when that happened. Normally, I expected I had enough easily for the whole season, and sold right out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that, and as far as my schedule went, that pushed everything a little bit further back for me. So on my secondary treatment was a little bit later, and with the treatment that I use, you can't feed while you're doing that. So my feeding schedule was late. So I've been scrambling, but my hives are in good shape now. My mite counts are down, and I've been feeding the heck out of them to make sure that they're
Shaping
all
up
ready.
for the winter.
Yep. And that's so important, is just to have your bees healthy and plenty of food to go into the winter.
Yeah, and it sounds complicated, and there are potentially a lot of things to remember, but there's it's reasonably straightforward, and
Yep,
once
it
you
is.
get the knack of it, it's reasonably straightforward, and certain things are done when, and if you've got a bit of help and a bit of guidance, you should have no problem at all if keeping bees is something that you're interested in getting into.
Right, right. So
It's been fun though, the fall.
the fall has been fun.
I've been really impressed. We've done a few craft fairs and country fairs together,
Yep.
Amy and I, this year, and that's been a lot of fun having company doing those sort of
It
things.
is.
I've really
It is.
appreciated the company, because I'm often doing these things on my own. But we had a lot of fun talking to people, and I mean, I sell a fair amount of honey and that sort of stuff. But one of the things I found customers really loved this year, and finally I had a little bit of it, was comb honey. So if you're a beekeeper, producing comb honey can really improve the return on your bees.
Right.
It's nice to make a little bit of money off your bees as well. But I did a lot of make other stuff like beeswax that we get in the process of keeping bees, and making hand creams and various types of honey that are flavored and that sort of thing. This one's got blueberries in it.
Yep.
So adding different things like that, making lip balms and things, all these sort of things really increases the opportunity to get a return on your bees, which really helps.
It really does. It really
It's a little expensive to get started,
It is.
but I mean, one super of honey and you can make enough money to buy another beehive next year.
Yes, and for those of you who have bees, that's exactly what you do. You buy more hives. You have one, no, you have two,
It
then
is
you
a
have
bit
four.
addictive, isn't it?
It is. So, and we were at the Common Ground Fair in Maine, which is one of the larger fairs that we have up here in Maine, and they had an estimated 20,000 people a day come through that fair, and it ran Friday through Sunday, and what a great! I mean, the first day we froze. We underdressed. We were miserable.
It was cold.
It was cold. The second day, there was the tail end of a hurricane coming through. So it was windy, but it was much warmer. And even though we were cold the first day, the second and third days were beautiful. And we got the opportunity to talk to so many people. And everybody likes to talk about bees. And for those of you out there who are beekeepers, you know as well as I do, if someone asks you a question about bees, you will talk their ear off. We love to talk about bees. So we got the chance to do that. We met tons of people. And it was really it was a great weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And it was by far and away the best return on a show I've ever had in terms of selling lots of product and stuff.
Yeah.
And having said that, then we started with the Bangor Mall Craft Fair.
Yep.
Just a couple of weeks ago, and we've got a couple more of those coming up. But people absolutely loved your elixir. You should tell about your elixir.
Yes. So one of the products that I make is I call it an elixir. However, I do not claim that it cures anything. However, the ingredients in this is everything to help get rid of and or prevent colds. It helps ease. So there's honey, there's lemon, there's ginger, there's elderberry,
and it's wonderful. I love that stuff.
And that was
I've been having that stuff all week, and there's COVID in my household, and I didn't get it so far.
Was it this? We don't know.
It must be the. I'm sure it's the elixir.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the elixir.
So, however, everything in my elixir is very, very good for you. And I've made it, and I actually sold it at the craft fair, and I sold out. Pretty much both days.
Yeah.
And I stayed
I
up
was getting phone calls all the next week for people. Where can I get some more of that
Right.
stuff? It's great.
Right. So that's just an example of of the products that you make and these different things that you can benefit from having honeybees. And it's fun to come up with all these. I know people who
and
make.
it gives you something to do associated with bees at the time of year when you can't go in and play with your bees.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That's good.
I know people who make these wax coverings to go over bowls, and they're reusable.
Oh,
I've seen those.
like the replacement of plastic bags and things.
Yeah.
Plastic wraps. Wax wraps. Yeah.
So again, we've got a couple more craft fairs coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to be a little bit more prepared with my product this year.
Yeah. So we've got the Bangor Mall Craft Fair. There's 2 more in November. First week in November, the 5th and 6th, and then the 12th and 13th. And then the following weekend, we're doing the
Main Harvest Festival.
Main Harvest Festival in the Cross Center. And that was fun last year. We
That
did that
was fun.
together last year. That was good.
Yeah, we did that. We do that along with our local bee club as well, and great group of people. And again, just the opportunity to talk about bees, and people have so many questions.
Yeah.
So many questions.
So if you have the opportunity to stop in at those fairs, if you want some of the products, or you just want to talk bees, and hopefully we'll still have the observation hives going and that sort of thing, then it's a lot of fun, and we love meeting people who have an interest in the product and the and bees in general.
Right. So that was the little side note there on our fairs and things that you can do with your honey and your products. But
Yeah, we should get back to bees.
we should get back to beekeeping. And so now we are in fall, so up here in the Northeast. So
Yeah, the winter is looming, so we're sort of preparing our hives for winter. Of course, it started with things like those mite treatments, making sure the bees are healthy going into winter. Number one thing you can do to keep your bees alive in the wintertime is make sure in the summertime you don't get those mites out of control, because every hive's going to get mites. It's a matter of making sure that they never get out of control,
Right.
so that the hive stays healthy. Then we want to make sure they're well fed, and so we've been, where necessary, we feed them sugar syrup to help them bulk up for the wintertime. Prepare with things like reducing entrances to stop mice getting into the hive and stop other bees robbing from them.
Right.
Then even insulating the hives, that can really help them avoid using up lots of honey during the winter. Because just like we burn a lot of oil in our
furnaces
during the wintertime, bees eat a lot of honey to keep warm during the winter. So a cold winter, the bees eat a lot of honey, and believe it or not, a really warm winter, because they fly a lot during the winter, they burn a lot of honey as well. So we have to make sure that our bees go into the winter with enough, and that can typically be about 100 pounds of honey per hive per winter.
And fun fact for those of you who are not beekeepers, bees do their darndest not to go to the bathroom in the hive in the winter. So when he mentioned that they fly around, a lot of times in the wintertime you'll come out and we'll see little yellow dots all through the snow.
And that's a good sign.
That's
a good sign. It means your bees are alive, because they have to be warm in order to fly.
Yeah.
And on a day when it nudges into the 40s, you can get a yellow snowstorm.
Right, that's right, and you do, and those of you who keep bees also, I mean, they go year round, but those of you who do keep bees, we know what all those hard to get little yellow things on your car is, because they tend to go in your car as well, and it's difficult to get off. So, fun facts.
Oh yeah.
Back to fall.
Back to fall. So our hives are almost ready. I'm almost done. I've got one more mite treatment I want to do before we close up, and I've got to insulate my hives. So
Same here.
otherwise they're pretty well fed and ready to go. They weigh a ton, so they are getting ready for winter time now. I'll be going through the winter with about 120 colonies this year.
Nice. I'll be going through with, I had 8, and we actually did a combination on one of them, because we had one hive that wasn't doing so well, and we combined, so I'll be going through with just 7, and buttoning them up here shortly. And always sad to put the insulation on and button them down, because you can't go out and do your inspections or anything like that through the winter, so you hope that you see yellow snow.
That's right.
To the winter.
Right.
And they're still there.
Yeah.
So.
Now we're going to say hi to Pam, who's commented there. Thank you very much for watching the videos.
Yes, thank
much
you.
appreciated.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free to put something
definitely.
in comments, or if there's something they'd like us to chat about, go ahead. And we'd love to interact with anybody.
Did you see us at the craft fairs, or did you are you planning to see us? Anything you need us to bring to the craft fairs?
That's right. That's right. So let's go in and touch a little bit about mentorship and mentoring, and how important it is for the new beekeepers or the struggling beekeepers to find somebody to give them a hand.
Yeah, there's not. When I first started beekeeping as an 11-year-old, I was very fortunate that I had somebody. I was doing a beekeeping merit badge then in the Boy Scouts, and I had the guy who was sort of supervising that was my mentor, Mr. Jennings in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, and he saved the day for me, because I'd read about beekeeping stuff, but I didn't have anybody apart from until he came along to actually ask questions about it and stuff, and he sort of was my guiding hand going through beekeeping. And we all remember our mentors. And when I moved to Maine, I needed a mentor again, early 2003. And Harold Swan, who's sort of the grandfather of beekeeping in Maine, he was my mentor then. And it was very good having that expert knowledge that you could rely on, because there wasn't an internet back then, and there wasn't an internet with this sort of resources that we had then. There was the internet, but it was in its infancy, relatively speaking, and so there's a lot more information out there, a lot more sources of information.
Everywhere. Everywhere you turn.
Yeah, actually, in some might say too many sources, and too variety of sources, and too anonymous sources to providing information out there.
I mean, if you're a long-term experienced beekeeper, you can kind of weed your way through some things, you know, like, well, that's not accurate. But if you're just beginning, it's really difficult to know when you're watching, you know, videos or researching stuff, which is the route that works best for them in their area, if you don't know and you're not experienced.
Yeah.
So it's so important to find that mentor.
Yeah. A good thing is start with a beekeeping class. If you've got beekeeping classes that you can attend, that was always very helpful. I've been teaching in adult ed classes for about a decade, until the pandemic, and I've had about 3,000 students learning beekeeping that way. And since the pandemic started, I stopped doing as many in-person classes at places like adult eds. I did still do some here on my farm, but what I've changed to more was going sort of online, doing them virtually, and that's where we started to get the idea of our next venture.
Right. Our we kind of collaborate a bit here, and we were talking about, you know, things we were seeing online and how confusing it was, and watching some certain groups, there'd be a lot of negativity, and it would almost like scare the new beekeeper away, and people seemed afraid to ask questions because they were afraid it was a stupid question. So basically what we did, and with the urging of our mentor, my cousin Rita Freecott, we started this Beekeeping 24/7, and I'll tell you, I couldn't be happier with how this has developed, and the people that we have in our group. So basically what it is, it's an online mentoring, and we have classes. We have a full beekeeping classes on there.
At this time last year, we were recording 12 really detailed beginners classes that way, and I'm immensely proud of those, because I know that they contain probably twice the information I could get through in a 5-hour in-person class. And the beauty of it also is that people can watch it and then re-watch it at their leisure.
Right.
And so many people miss hearing it once and then it's gone forever.
Right.
And even with taking notes and things, there's nothing like being able to say, watch it again.
Right. And this is almost the best of both worlds, because when you're in a class setting, you can raise your hand and ask a question because maybe you were taking notes and you missed the last thing that was said. With this, like you said, you go through at your own pace, and you can still ask those questions, because there's a method to ask questions on any of those classes, and it comes right to you and I, and we can answer that question for you right then and there. And so it you know, the need kind of sprung out of the pandemic, because people weren't able to go face to face and have mentors face to face. And even if now that we're kind of out of that, you know, as a bit, I mean, it's not gone, but there may not be a beekeeper anywhere near you.
That's right, but it's also being able to provide consistent advice. I mean, you can go into the internet and get a lot of people's advice, but following the same line of strategy can be tricky, getting someone to help you consistently, because you can get information from 20 different people, and 5 of them might be going in one tack, and 3 are going in another tack, and 2 going in another tack, and you don't know which one follows well from the last treatment that you do, at least as a beginner, at any rate.
Right. And we don't claim that our way is the best way of beekeeping.
Our way has been successful for us here.
It works for us here, and we've been successful here, and it's one method, and it's worked for us, and it's worked for so many of your students that you've had. Me being one of them, I was one of Peter's students back about 10 years ago, actually, when you started teaching.
Oh,
So
showing your age now.
I know I got some gray in the ponytail too. So, but you know, no, this group that we have, and again, it's an online mentorship, and it's a paid membership, and it's but not only is it just the classes and the ability to see all the instructional videos, we also have a private Facebook page where
So it's a community.
it's a community. And when not only do Peter and I talk on this and say things, but our community of members ask questions, they talk to each other, they show how their hives are doing, and it's just turned into this really great group of people where there's no negativity and there are no stupid questions, and we can't stress that enough. Because if one person has that question, I'm sure a bunch of other ones have the same question.
That's right. And we're all going along on the same sort of strategy
Right.
as well.
Right. And a lot of times we'll answer their questions with a video and actually show them the answer.
Yeah. So for example, I think in the 9 months or so we've had Beekeeping 24/7 open, we've done about an additional 35 videos for training in response to either topics that are appropriate for this time of year, or we've had 3 or 4 questions this week, and some of these have been really good videos, so let's make a video to explain it, because a lot of people find it a lot easier to see what the answer is as opposed to just hear or read what the answer is. We've done some videos in the hives themselves. Some of the we go live on Facebook sometimes, both in this room here, but also live in the hive, and we can show what we're talking about.
Right.
So it's been very useful. In fact, we've got another question here. This is the sort of thing that we have like on our question and answer sessions, typically on Beekeeping 24/7, which we have fairly regularly. Pam's asking, when do we stop feeding for winter? The best mite treatments now or before winter? Well, with the mite starting, first things first, ideally mite treatments want to be done through the summer and into the fall. Here in Maine, I like to get a treatment done in mid-July. I like to get another one done around about the first week in September, and I'll usually wrap up with another treatment around the end of October into November to make sure everything is cleaned up with mites before we really get into winter. In terms of feeding, most of my feeding is done. I've still got feeders on my hives right now. We've got days next week or so is coming up in the 60s, nighttime temperatures around 40 or above. And so in my view, it's still warm enough to get some feed into the hives if they're in any way lighter than I'd like to see. Ideally, you get to have them full of honey by now.
Right.
But we could be feeding with sugar syrup right now just to make sure they're really stuffed full for the winter. If it gets too cold, we have to stop. So I would say stop feeding if our nighttime temperatures are becoming below 40 most nights. Once we're at that stage, stop feeding with liquid sugar syrup, and then we might feed with something like a winter patty or bricks of sugar. And we recently just did a talk last week about feeding with winter products like candy, sugar syrup, sugar patties or winter patties.
Right. So thank you, Pam, for that question. I hope that answers it. If not, let us know, and we will. If we don't get to some of the questions on here, or if we didn't answer what you're looking for, just let us know on the comments here, and we will write you an answer.
See, Nicole is appreciated the class I did. I did a Beekeeping for Me class with Ellsworth last week, and thank you, Nicole. I appreciate the comment.
So back to. Hold on here. We got another question.
What's the trigger
Robbie.
when to wrap? Okay, well, typically I wouldn't say there's a specific trigger. You can wrap early if you like, but I like to make sure I'm wrapped up before the snow makes it hard to get to my bees. Typically I'm wrapping in November because I want to get the other jobs done as well. And my wrap, I use bee cozies, which are a plastic sleeve of insulation. And because one of my last mite treatments is usually using oxalic acid vapor, which requires putting a hot element at the entrance of the hive, I try to get that done before I put my wrap on because I don't want to melt a little hole in my insulated wrap. So once I've got my last oxalic acid treatment in, then I'll wrap the hives, and that takes a couple of minutes.
Right. And that's generally
mid-November.
Mid-November.
Yeah, before Thanksgiving usually, I'd say.
And again, I mean, people use different methods to insulate. Some people just wrap it with tar paper. Some people put other types of insulation on. We use the bee cozies up here. I found a big difference in survivability when I am using that, and my hive goes in healthy, goes into winter healthy. And but
They're
again,
also very good in the wind as well. I found
they are. It's a good windbreak.
Found them a very good windbreak.
Yep, it's a great windbreak. And you know, a lot of people ask, when do I put them on? When do I take them off? There is no set time schedule, but it's when it starts getting really, really cold and we're like freezing. And you know what? I'm gonna put mine on. And like you said, after my last oxalic acid treatment. So yeah, mid to late November is fine. It works just fine. So
now, one last thing about Beekeeping 24/7. We've got a website, and we'll put a link in the comments section here as soon as we finish. So if you want more information on Beekeeping 24/7, you can follow that link to the website. There's a little bit more information on the background, and if you're interested in how to join.
Yep, we'd love to have you, and I can't stress the great people that we already have. We have members throughout the U.S., and it's a great community, and we're having fun with it, and it's just can't say enough about it. We're really having a good time. So,
Certainly are.
So I think that is about it for our live session.
Yeah, we'll not bore you for too long here, so we'll wrap up now after 33 minutes and 29 seconds, and thank you very much for joining us. And if you weren't one of those watching live, this will be recorded and be on the Bee Whisperer website, the Bee Whisperer Facebook page for a while. I'll also put it on my YouTube channel, Beekeeping with the Bee Whisperer.
Good. And again, any questions, and you have questions afterwards, feel free to type them in the comments, and we'll get back to you on that.
All right.
All right. Hope you guys are having a great day.
Thanks for joining us. There's one last comment. What was it? Hello from South Texas. All right. Thanks for all y'all many tips and inputs. Definitely a blessing to those.
We actually
who
have
don't know.
members from Texas and Beekeeping 24/7.
Thank you very much,
as well,
Mike.
so.
We appreciate that. And Corey, thank you very much.
All right. You
Okay,
folks take care.
Bye-bye.
See you later.